Welcome to another edition of Talk City Greensboro, produced by GTN, featuring interviews and events happening around town. It's an easy way to stay in the know while you're on the go. Subscribe to Talk City on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or SoundCloud so you can keep up with what's going on in Greensboro City government. I'm your host, Josh Johnson, and alongside me, already laughing at me, is my co-host and good friend, Mr. Devin Smith.
Hey, I wasn't laughing until you said I was laughing.
I know.
I felt like that gave me permission even though I wanted to.
It was absolute permission. You have a standing permission to laugh.
What's up, Greensboro? Thank you for joining us again. The city of Greensboro and the city council has been proactive about establishing a relationship between the community and the GPD. From community-oriented policing to starting the Greensboro Criminal Justice Advisory Commission, or as we know it as GC-JAC, in 2018. Latisha McNeil is the city's criminal justice administrator, and she's joined us today to talk about GC-JAC, the PCRB, and kind of how that relationship is going. So how you doing?
I'm doing well. I hope you all are.
Yes, thanks for coming.
Yeah,
thanks for having me.
So tell us what your job is and what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. So I serve as the criminal justice administrator for the city. My responsibilities are to be the administrator for the Greensboro Criminal Justice Advisory Commission and the subcommittee, which is the PCRB. Okay. So I take calls from complaints. I talk to commissioners. We talk about various topics of criminal justice and the criminal justice continuum. I look at data from the police department and do all of that to be able to present it to Greensboro.
Okay, cool. So, and you kind of told us this a little bit. Well, what is the PCRB, or the Police Community Review Board, and the GC-JAC, and then also talk about their relationship. How are they related to each other?
Okay. So the Greensboro Criminal Justice Advisory Commission, which is a long name, so we refer to it as the GC-JAC. Right. It is an advisory commission. Mm-hmm. And the responsibilities of the advisory commission are to monitor the justice continuum. Right. We review different issues, events that go on in criminal justice within the city. We analyze trends that are going on in policing, provide that information to the community. Okay. So we do like education on understanding your rights, on poverty and criminal justice and the effects of that, or the correlation between the two. Understanding different things like bail. So it's the education arm.
Right.
So we do a lot of educating people, and then we also do a lot of looking at the system. Mm-hmm. So the GC-JAC, the way I look at it is the GC-JAC is the umbrella.
Okay.
So under that umbrella is the Police Community Review Board.
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. And so the Police Community Review Board is a group of residents who review cases, individual cases, right, where if someone had a complaint with GPD, mm-hmm, and they went through professional standards and they got a determination on their complaint, and they didn't like it. They didn't like the outcome.
Right.
They could have that complaint reviewed by a group of residents, and that's the PCRB. Okay. So they look at the individual instances.
Okay. Right. So when I think about this, I'm thinking about the idea of GC-JAC is to extend an arm from the city to say, hey, this is some of the things that you need to know. These are some things that you can educate yourself when it comes to how policing or justice, the whole justice system, is kind of how it operates.
Right.
And then we have an arm of, from that, of a group of individuals who also are like, well, here's the community input to make sure that it's just not the police basically policing themselves, mm-hmm, but the community has some type of input or influence and the ability to just say, hey, okay, we understand what's going on, that there are some people in the community that are in the actual, that, as some people like to say, at the table. Okay.
Yeah, and another thing about the GC-JAC is they make recommendations for policy changes, which to me is one of the biggest positives or pluses that the city of Greensboro has, that a lot of other police review or like citizen review organizations, councils, and things like that, they don't have that arm. And so the GC-JAC is able to go in, look at the directives from GPD, and say, we would like to make a recommendation that this be looked at, this policy be amended, and we base it on the data that we receive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So when and why did these two, one's a commission and one's a board, when did they get started, and what was kind of the background behind starting them?
Okay, so I was hired in 2019, January of 2019, okay. But so this predates me. There used to just be the PCRB. And so there were questions about wanting the PCRB to be able to do more within the community, wanting to be able to educate the community, wanting to be able to look at the systematic issues. Yeah. And so based on the way that at the time, the current bill or statute was written for North Carolina, they couldn't do that. And so there was a lot of background work done by some great folks other than me, and they created a bill, House Bill 1080, I wrote it down, nice. To form the Greensboro Criminal Justice Advisory Commission, because what people were saying is that people weren't happy with the PCRB because they didn't know what was going on. The complainants didn't know what was going on. The police weren't happy. They didn't know what was going on with the PC. So it was like the PCRB was stuck because they, even if they had these, they may have these cases and think, oh, well, we want to do something. We want to educate the public. They weren't put in a position to be able to do that. Yeah. And so the GC-JAC was created to have that space to be able to educate the public.
Okay, because the PCRB, their job was simply to review the determination of what the professional standards division of the police department said, and so that the community could understand what was going on. Their job wasn't to, in turn, take that information and take it back to the community. Yep. But now the GC-JAC, they may not share specifics about a case, but they can put together data and packages and strategies and plans and say, this is a trend of what's going on, and this is how we can combat that. Right.
So with the PCRB, when you had a complaint, the PCRB may have looked at that complaint and had a problem with policy, because at the job of the PCRB is to look at the professional standards determination, and they are to determine if professional standards follow their procedures. So in essence, their job is to make sure that the police followed what their guidelines and their policies state.
Yeah.
So if we don't like the policy, that didn't matter because
it was the policy.
It's the policy.
Yeah.
Right. And so with the so there was frustration there, which, I wasn't there, but I can imagine there was frustration because if you see something, you want to change it, but you really don't have any way to voice that concern. And so with the GC-JAC, if they see a policy, and, the PCRB may again have to say, yes, professional standards acted within that policy, but then what the PCRB can do is come back and say, hey, GC-JAC as a whole, let's look at this data. What is this saying? I mean, is this a trend? Is this just, a one-off thing?
Right.
And well, hold up, let's look at this policy.
Let's look at the policy itself.
And what recommendations can we as a commission make to the city or to the police department to make changes to that policy?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And these entities, they did not start from a reactionary position. As you said earlier, you came in 2019 and these things were already here.
Right.
referring basically what's happened this year revolving around police brutality and that conversation. These two entities have been at the table. So what's been the focus here in Greensboro, coming from for the boards? I mean, what's...
So I want to say that first, I applaud our city. We as a city should be very proud that we have had this commission because I've gotten phone calls from across the country. I mean, if you name a state, I've talked to someone in that state, and they've wanted to know about Greensboro, North Carolina, and what the GC-JAC is, and what do you mean? What are you all doing? Because we recognized that we needed something to be able to address policy issues. So I think the openness and the willingness to have openness and transparency among the city and the Greensboro Police Department so we could share this information with the residents has been something that is really been monumental because my phone and emails won't stop. So,
Yeah. So is there a way that the public can get involved in this outside of being selected by council to be on the commission or on the board? How can is there a way that they can come to certain meetings, or how can they get their comments heard, not only from like a complaint standpoint, but from just a simple, I want to be involved in the process? Yes.
So pre-COVID, the GC-JAC met the third Thursday of every month at the library, Central Library downtown, 6:30 p.m. Those meetings were open. They were open to the public. So there has always been a seat at the table for the public. We want the public to come. Now we're currently doing those meetings via Zoom, and they're still the third Thursdays at 6:30. So there's one next Thursday. 6:30. Yeah. And that information is available on our webpage. So if people want to get that link, it's right there, and they can just tune in. They can always send emails. They can go to the webpage. My email information, my name is all over. So they can send me an email. Like if they have concerns, issues, they can always send those in. I forward all of that information to the board. At the end of every meeting, there's a section for public comments, public comments, public concerns. Right. Now, the board may not be able to actually address it right then and there, but what they do is they take that information, they take it back and look at it and say, within the framework of GC-JAC, how can we address whatever this issue is? And then they will get back to the greater community with, this is what we're looking at.
Absolutely. Okay. So. And I mean, from where I sit, I feel like that's kind of, like you said, that's a humongous thing that council is doing. And I know you sent me, you wanted me to get some information from a Zoom meeting, and there were like 100 people in that meeting.
Oh, man.
Including council members.
Right.
I mean, like, this is something that people are thoroughly involved in. It's not just, hey, we put a board together, do what we tell you to do. They are involved from the meetings to everything, and this information goes back to council and the city manager's office. Right?
Correct. And that's what we want. I mean, we want the community to have a voice in the GC-JAC. The GC-JAC is made up of community, so we want to make sure that we include the whole community in Greensboro, different voices. So, there are people from every district represented. So the board itself is probably one of the most diverse boards in the city. So you have several different populations or demographics represented. Yeah. And so we want to make sure that we get the collective voice of Greensboro. Yeah.
So. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, tell us how people can contact you. I know you said your email's up there, but if you want to give out your phone number or anything like that, how can people best get in contact with you?
So they can reach out to me at GC-JAC at greensboro-nc.gov. They can call the office at 336-373-2295, and they can check us out on the website. If you go to the City of Greensboro's page, just type in GC-JAC. We've made it so that as soon as you type up GC-JAC, we will come up.
Takes you there.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, Latisha, thank you so much for being here, giving us this information. We appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for having me. This is cool.
All right. And stay tuned in weekly by subscribing to Talk City Greensboro on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And don't forget you can download Talk City from SoundCloud.
That's it for this week. Thank you for tuning in to Talk City. Be sure to watch GTN, your official source for news and information from the city of Greensboro. GTN is available on Spectrum Channel 13,
AT&T Uverse Channel 99,
and North State Channel 31.
GTN also streams live on Roku and the city's website at greensboro-nc.gov.
Have a good one.
See ya.